They told me 1,000 scripts is too much for an early project. But let me explain what I've been working on. What makes up for a good portion of those 1,000 scripts. Did that leave you on the edge of your seat? Good. Because for the past week and a half, I've been developing this absolute monster of a machine. A 4-legged steel spider equipped with lasers for eyes, a radial beam underneath, and a humongous blade for a head. The Slag Walker. How heavy is he, you ask? Well, I don't know because this game universe is completely imaginary and the exact physics are kind of irrelevant, but if I had to pinpoint, like, 600 or 700 pounds? I'm not certain, but one thing I'm sure of is he's definitely not as large as your mama. Anyhow, his size is just one factor I've carefully selected to keep you on the edge of your seat, shivering in your tempers. You see, I already knew when I first came up with the idea for the Slag Walker, I wanted him to be that big, clunky machine-type enemy. You know, the type that's not scary because it's paranormal or like a freaky Snapchat ghost-type enemy. I wanted him to be scary because of his presence being literally dangerous and intimidating. So what better way to do that than make him 5 times your size, made of industrial steel metal and completely indestructible. When I first modeled him, I tweaked his size a few times up and down and I realized something. Regardless of the final size that I settle on, because of his unique spider shape, I have no choice but to make him at least taller than the doors. If I were to shrink him down to the point where his head can pass through the door, he'll end up as small, if not smaller, than your player. And while some tiny creatures, particularly slimy centipede and freaky babies, can in fact be very scary, this little guy was definitely not. Which brings me to my next point, sound design. You see, good sound effects are fundamental to a horror game's effectiveness. Atmosphere is a key aspect to what makes a horror game actually scary, and in turn, fun. A horror game like Phasmophobia at 10% volume just isn't as spooky when you can't hear the ambiance. The psychological effects like a heartbeat, the footsteps of the monsters that you can't even see. In fact, I would argue that sound is so important that it's actually the most important factor of the entire horror genre. I'm so confident that you can make a game where your character is literally blind and the only thing on the screen is pitch black. A game where you completely rely on sound. And with good controls and UI combined with the perfect sound design to really drive home that atmospheric tension, the game would probably be better than 90% of horror games in the Steam store. And that's exactly why I needed the Slag Walker to have the right sound effects. Obviously, I was never going to leave him mute and soundless, but if he wasn't the right size, I wouldn't be able to apply the perfect sounds. I wanted him to feel heavy and rumbly, a monster that you could hear and feel approaching even with 2 or 3 walls in between you and it. The kind of monster that would make your camera shake violently as you got closer. And I'm sorry to say, but if this little spider guy was the size of your friend's newborn baby, then the weight of that sound just wouldn't make any sense. And tiny little clinky footsteps just weren't going to cut it either. Okay, the sound is very important, true. But what's just as important as an antagonist sound design? Their mechanics. In horror games, every monster typically has a unique set of mechanics. These include a way to detect the player, a way to approach the player, and a way to brutally maim or murder said player. Now you might be asking, well, for step 1, Fade, how is this robot machine killer supposed to see or hear you? I mean, he's a robot, right? It's not like he has eyes or ears. And to that I say, exactly. The Slag Walker can't hear you, and he can't naturally see you in the way that a human would either. And that's precisely why he's equipped with 4 beaming lasers that scan intermittently to detect players. This means you can tiptoe around this giant spider as often as you want, so long as you stay out of his laser scans. Because the second you trip one of those lasers, oh buddy, you're in for a time. Point 2. A way to approach the player. Now, say you do accidentally step in front of one of his glowing red scoped lasers. What can you expect him to do next? Let's just say he speeds up a little to get to the point where you were standing when the laser hit you. And when I say a little, I actually mean a lot. Like, full sprint. In the time it takes your player to run from one end of a hallway to the other, the rushing Slag Walker would have run the entire length of a football field. In other words, if your backup plan was to just run away from the Slag Walker if he ever detected you, yeah, I hope you have a plan C. Because your backup plan B is about to be as effective as taking said plan 48 hours after doing the deed. Point 3. A way to hurt or kill the player. So what does Slag Runner McGee do once he reaches the point where you were? Well, here's the catch. Remember how I said he can't actually see since he doesn't have eyes? Assuming he caught up to the point where the laser first hit you, and you've since run away from that point, and you've had luck on your side and none of his lasers since then have actually hit you, you're fine. If there's distance between the two of you now and you're not at risk of being detected anymore, nothing really happens. No, he doesn't whip out a missile or start climbing on the ceilings or anything. although I'll admit that would be pretty sick. He'll continue to patrol around the area for a bit, but that's about it before he returns to his normal routine. That being said, good luck getting his lasers to not hit you again while he's chasing you, because the speed at which his lasers scan actually increases once you trip one of them. So in all probability, unless you're a pro gamer like me, he will actually reach you eventually. And once he does, maybe I'll save that part for you to find out once the demo releases. Love you all. Peace out.